Welcome back to the second video of this series. If you haven't watched the first one yet, head back there to get caught up to speed. In this video we'll be covering how to set up Salt Cloud with AWS and launch a couple of instances in the account, and we'll be able to use those instances later to configure all of the Salt states. So we'll get right back into it. Okay, now we go into Salt. Now we need to start configuring the cloud options. So if we're going to cloud providers, and the first provider we're going to do is Amazon. So VI AWS, and we're going to do US West 2 because it's in Oregon. Okay, at this time I want to just pause for just a second and explain that the way this is set up, we're using the Oregon Amazon data center, but you can use any of the Amazon, or you can actually use any provider that's listed. So you can even have some at Rackspace or some at Linode or whatever, and you can configure this so that when you launch machines, you can launch two at in the California Amazon data center, or two in the Virginia one, or whatever it is you want. You can launch them anywhere across any multiple data centers, which also includes multiple providers. So you can launch 5 or 6 servers over at Rackspace, and launch some at Amazon, and launch some at some other provider, and they will all be controlled and managed by this same Salt Cloud configuration. So just wanted to drop that in there in the middle of this so that you're aware that you can manage multiple environments, and it doesn't have to be limited to just one. You can configure as many providers as you want for as many different areas. So back to the configuration in progress. And .gov. And that's pretty much the file name on this. Doesn't really matter too much because it reads in all the configurations. What does matter is that. So you have to have, it has to start with that first bit there. Okay. Now, because we launched this machine with the appropriate IAM role, we don't need to put in any ID, any credentials or anything in here, so we can just use instance role, and it's smart enough to know that. Okay, and for this one we're going to do key name, and we called our key was I forget what the key was. Let's go back over here. There we go. Just call that. Okay, and private key. Let's see, Salt AWS, and I don't yet have that key up here on the server, so I'll have to add that in manually in a minute. Location is US West 2. SH username EC2 user, and we want to make sure that it cleans itself up afterwards. Probably pointless to do them both. The second one probably does it all. This one's a nice feature. When you destroy them, it renames them to some random gibberish. That way, if you launch new ones, you don't get confused on the name, because it takes them all. It cleans up the name so it's available to be used again without having to worry about duplicates and stuff. Driver EC2. Okay, now this is I am I'm not entirely sure I need to put that in there. So that's a good test. Let's try it without it first, and then we'll come back and put it in if we need to, because I don't think it needs it, because we're not this box should have the rights already, but you know what, I'm betting it's gonna need that. So let's kick over here and just grab it real quick while we're here. Saltmaster. So this is the AIM profile right here. Just copy that whole thing and paste it in. Oops. Yeah, we can try it without it later, but I'm pretty sure it needs it now that I think about it. Okay, now that part's done. So we're going to come in here to Cloud Profiles, and we're going to do a dev.conf. So we're going to do our development environment first. So we're going to want, let's do location server, and we're going to do this in zone A. And we're going to do provider. What did we call it? Oops. Cloud. Yes, AWS US West conf. Okay. So that's the provider. And SSH will always be private IPs. Image. And this is where we have to define the image that gets launched. So we'll kick over to Amazon EC2, come to images, launch a new one, and it's this number right here that they want. Okay. Put that in there, and size, and for this one we want these T2 micros. Okay. And we don't need to worry about that. SSH is already in there, location's already in there, zone is in US West 2A, and we want to do block device mappings for this name. Now this is where it gets a little confusing, because they've switched the way the devices are named. So we go to an instance and see how it says dev xvda. That's the device that you want if you're going to do the root device. Otherwise, you'll do whatever one you're actually after. But in this case, I'm going to bump it up by just a smidge. EBS dot size, and we're going to go to 30. For that, security group, we're going to do ACME internal, and let's give it a tag of environment of, oops, if I get typed today, dev, let's do lowercase, not that it matters really, and we're going to do role app server, okay, and minion. This is the part that gets passed on to the server, so let's grab, because I forget what the IP is. I'll grab the IP. And we're going to set that as our master here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Master. So that this is, once the minion is spun up, it knows where to talk to for its information. Grains. Okay, now the grains are what is basically used to tell the Salt environment what that server is for, what it does. So you use these grains to define essentially everything about the box. So in this case, it's going to be grains, and we're going to give it a role. Roles, app server, and let's also do an environment of dev. Okay, so once this is done, it'll spin up and it will have the role of app server, and it'll be in the env, or the environment of dev. Yeah, I forgot about you gotta add the VPC stuff, so let's actually edit the cloud up. Providers. Oops. And we need to add in right here VPC ID, and we need to get our VPC. Which is this right here. And did I get everything else? Yeah, okay. Okay. So now we can go back and fix this other one. Okay, we need to add in here the subnet and the networking stuff. So we'll add that right here. 1, 2. Network 0. Address. Primary true, and false, and subnet ID. Now for this one, because we're doing it in zone, what did we say, zone A? Yeah, so it's in zone A, so it's going to be the private subnet for zone A. So private subnet zone A, so we want this one. Alright, you'll see here, if you look close, I've got a little bit of a typo here. The associated public IP address and the subnet ID are off by 1 space. I'm choosing to leave this mistake in the video so that you can kind of follow through the debug process, and some of the frustrations that system administrators find when you're setting this kind of stuff up. YAML is very sensitive, and you can see that going through this process you can get a feel for the little subtleties. But anyway, I decided to leave it in here just so you can kind of see some of the debug process and some of the other things that you can go through in order to try to find these kinds of errors. Okay. And I believe that will do it. Okay, now we're going to make this a little bit bigger. We're going to go ahead and copy this. Now we're going to change this to zone C. And all the rest of this stuff stays the same, with the exception of this subnet ID, which is now the zone C private subnet, which is this one here. Okay, now we can launch either machine here in either zone and it will work just fine. So let's come over here, and there's one more thing I forgot that it's gonna cry about. Yeah, there's some bug or glitch or something, and if we don't update this, it's gonna cry. It wants it to be, was it this one, right? This one. If I don't do that, for some reason it's just gonna bellyache about it. So okay, now we go into cloud.maps and we create a dev ev.conf, and here we want to do, whoops, what did we call that? My memory, oh boy, cloud profiles. So let's just copy this here. Dev environment. Okay, and we're gonna do dev dash server 1, and we're gonna do. We don't need to do 2, but we're going to do 2 just to show you that they're both happy. 2. Okay, so we've got 2 servers in this environment, and I need to get my SSH key over there, so let me do that real fast. Alright, okay, so I copied it over, made it read-only. Well, it should be 46400. Okay, should be read only there. And okay, should be good now. So etc salt. Now if we go into here, we can run salt cloud maps and the dev environment. Oh no, got a syntax errors all over the place. Oops, variables found wherein we're looking at. Parse string device index. So let's look at this one first. Device index, salt, environment interfaces, because we can paste it and it's going to be down here too. Interfaces. And now it's crying about public, associate public address. Still crying about the device index. Did I get the spacing wrong? That's the joys of YAML. Very, very anal. 1, 2. That's all right. Missed something else up here, maybe. 1. Still not happy. Still doesn't like the device index. That's right though. 100 spaces after it, right? Doesn't like that, huh? Weird. Well, we can try it without the dash. Seems like it wouldn't work though, but maybe. I see it still doesn't like it. There's something else wrong. There's something higher up that's wrong. And then fix the other issue. Okay, so what did we miss? We got something else wrong. Okay, application, provider, SSH interface, private IPs, image, size, availability zone, log mapping, device, S30 security group. Doesn't like that. So we got this validated, and turned out that these are just off spaced a little bit. So jump back over to our thing. So this is where the error is right here. 1, 2. Crazy how much that is. Such a small thing. All right. Okay. So what you can see is now it's going to launch app server 1 and 2. So we're going to say yes. And this is going to take a while. So let's kick over and watch it on Amazon with the EC2. And it's provided I did everything right. Oh, didn't like it. Something messed up. Add request. Oh, I see. So we gotta add in our security group IDs. So let's go back to VPC and create these security groups for internal. I want to do that. Okay, so try this again. Some errors. Okay. I believe it's crying about this right here. And it's because these are in fact instance level, but it shouldn't matter because we're just specifying them right here by group ID on the network interface. So there goes nothing. In this rather obvious fail, it's crying about permissions, and earlier in the other video I only added the administrative role for the EC2 and for the S3, but after doing some checking, it actually requires quite a bit of other permissions. So in this video, as opposed to going through and listing them all one by one, I eventually end up just adding the admin role to the secure, or to the role for the AMI, or for the IAM for the account, or for the Salt server. So we'll skip ahead to that part, but I wanted to explain what had happened with this last error message. So far so good, no error messages. So let's look at now and see if it's showing up here. Okay, good. So it's launching one of these servers now. And it's going to take a minute. So I didn't do it in parallel, which I should have. If you pass a -P at the end of this, it'll do it in parallel, so they'll launch all at the same time. But I didn't do it. But we can check now, make sure. So it's got an internal IP address, and it's in the same subnet as it's in the other subnet, because that was number 2, so it was in the C subnet. So let's check, it should be in, yep, and it is. So that's exactly what we wanted there. And let's check to make sure the drive came on. So if we come here, now we told it to be 30 gigs, and it is. So that worked as expected. We're just waiting for this to cycle through. It's got to finish. It doesn't complete until the server's all the way done. So as it turns out, security group that I thought about initially when we did the Salt server, it was incorrect. I needed to add the ability for the Salt server to talk to the internal network as well. So I forgot to add that, and then you can see in this part of the video we just added it real quick, and then after this everything is pretty much smooth. So just thought I'd throw that in there. I don't think that's going to matter, but let's add it. Yes, it does. Okay. That was the problem. Oops. There goes to see. So I can get rid of this window for now. I wondered about that security group earlier. Not really a surprise. Okay. Okay, so now it's going to launch the second server. It's going to close the connection and then okay, now it's launching the second one. So we come over here. Come on. Patience. Patience is virtue. Not right now, it isn't. There it goes. Okay, so that's launching the other server. And it's going to take a minute, just like the other one did. And then we will move on to the next steps. So on the output, it shows you all the different data from the states and from the run and everything, blah, blah, blah. And if you want to look at that data, you can do this, just a dash Q at the end, and it shows you the summary of the Amazon stuff. So you can see the IP, the name, the instance, that kind of thing. So we come back over here now. We've got our two servers. Okay, this concludes the video in this series. The next video will be configuring the reactor and setting up a basic state file to test with. If you have any questions or comments, post them below and we'll try to answer them. Until then, we'll see you in the next one.